Komal, towards the end of the session, will brief you a little more on that, but we'll have you back at 6, and 6 o'clock has been taken, keeping in mind the time that works for both the countries. Coming back to this session, the government is undertaking several initiatives to reform railways to make it greener, modern, and also immense focus on safety and sustainability. The technology-driven initiatives and solutions to ensure safe, secure, and comfortable travel is the big focus. Now, to again, they talk about electrification and moving towards zero carbon emission by 2030. There's some major initiatives that the railways is doing on this, and private sector is playing an important part in making them achieve most of these. So to cover this and a lot more than this, I invite our moderator, Mr. Nitin Kumar, Director, PricewaterhouseCoopers, to take the session forward. Nitin, with this, I leave the session in your hand. Nitin? No, I can't hear you.
Sorry. Thanks, Nirja, and I welcome all of the panelists here and also participants. Good afternoon, everyone, and good morning to two of my panelists who have agreed to join from countries across the world. So, as Nirja was rightly pointing out, there is a lot of focus in the railways around the technology to make railways safer, more secure, and reliable. And in continuing with the thoughts of the government around Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, as we are celebrating, there's a lot of aspirations of the country also looking up to the railways, which has been a lifeline during the stress times we had during the COVID period regarding mobility, both for the people as well as the goods. We are also, in the backdrop of Industry 4, and we are seeing how ecosystem is aligning itself, interconnected, and communicating with itself. So, given this backdrop, and the technology which is leading all the innovations is the leading carrier for the period that we are moving and looking forward for the Indian Railways also. In the backdrop of this, building a world-class railway ecosystem is a very relevant thing, especially railway itself committing to net zero carbon by 2030, and also a lot of electrification. We have seen the commitments and also delivery on that part in the electrification projects. So, coming from that background, I would like to welcome Dr. Gopala Krishnan, and it would be very insightful to hear from him. And basically, he leads the government initiatives from the flagship organization of Indian Railways, that is the CRIS. And I look forward to him and to understand how the CRIS and the railways as the flag bearer of the Indian railway system is taking these initiatives forward. I would welcome Dr. Gopala Krishnan insights on this. Dr. Gopala Krishnan, please.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Nitin, and good afternoon to everyone, my panelists and all the participants in this event. As is there in.
Are you able to hear us?
There was a lot of disturbance when you were speaking. I think there was a connectivity issue. You might have to look at a different connectivity if you can get there, some different link, because there was a lot of this. Your voice was breaking.
Nirja, am I audible?
Yeah, you are. I need to speak up a little because your voice is coming very low.
Okay.
You're required to speak up a little.
Yeah. So.
Thank you.
Indian Railways has actually invested a lot on IT and IT related for the last couple of years. In fact, the plans go farther than that. This topic, as was mentioned, is Internet of Things. So I represent the data analytics practice. I head the data analytics practice in CRIS, the IT for Indian Railways. and we are the users of the data. So our team is involved in a lot of analytics related initiatives. Data that is coming from sensors is also definitely a part of it. I'll just give a brief idea of what we do, how we plan to take this forward. As far as IoT and sensors are concerned, we look at the data collection side. Because when you want to do real-time health analytics of assets, it could be motives or forces and backends. You need condition-based events or that should be sent on a regular basis to be, and where then we can have some analytics running in the background to discern what kind of interventions are required in case the asset some kind of intervention. So from that perspective, our group is primarily a consumer of the data, and we have had systems developed where we use real-time, like big data or high-velocity data coming from our locomotives. What we call as a satellite tracking devices that are very now. At least they will be rolled out by the end of the year. 1,000 locomotives. Some satellite tracking device, it could be region satellite or. So using that data, high velocity data, we get around at least 30 seconds to get polls on where the location is. So we are able to look at even things like unscheduled halts and take timely interventions of where the operational bottlenecks are. This is the kind of things that we are currently doing. Obviously, we have much more plans for augmenting it. So I'll go one step at a time. So first we look at the fixed infrastructure. So fixed infrastructure as the sensors right now are not directly connected. So we have things like ultrasonic rod detectors which capture the data of how much, like what is the crack propagation, whether there is a rail fracture or not, or possibility of rail fracture or not. But these data points are right now not integrated in what we call a real-time data transfer to the. So that thought process and that design stage is on. As far as the signaling side is concerned, they are all we have lot many sensors. In fact, signaling department is one area where we have a proliferation of sensors. Sensors for a very long time. It's not just new, 20 years now. So all the points, the signals, current that flows into points, so all those things are captured, and we have a network monitoring system at the stations, and how to get interconnected. When you have multiple stations, maybe 100, 200 stations, it comes to a divisional server. So there is a lot of talk about analytics on that to detect cable faults. Where exactly you detect a cable fault? There are currently here at certain locations. So signaling is one very rich area where there is an active work that RDSO is taking to have a data ecosystem with sensors. And I would also actually I told as well that RDSO plays a very big role in the way data collection designs are standardized in railways. So RDSO, the signaling directorate, is already involved in those activities. And as far as the rolling stock is concerned, that's where again it was a lot of analytics of locomotives get done. In fact, the diesel locomotives, we are around 3,800 diesel locomotives on. They are equipped with over 280 sensors, right from temperature sensors to current sensors and traction motors, temperature sensors, ambient temperature, exhaust temperature, turbochargers and engines and things like that. So there are 280 sensors which are combined together with the power electronics and transmitted to the servers that we have. And those are things there where we can do a lot of data analytics as well. We are not even scratched the surface of that particular. And a similar kind of a thing for electric locomotives is also being contemplated, but I'm not aware of the contours of it. It's still in the design stage. But definitely the all the electric locomotives are now equipped with two-way communication because they have satellite tracking devices. And
right, Mr. Yeah.
And those are being designed, but the basic what we call the infrastructure is already put in place where we have live communication with our IT servers in the IT center that we have. And with regards to coaches and wagons, there is all the coaches and wagons, in fact, even locomotives will be equipped with RFID tags. And that's all in a big way. All the new wagons that are getting manufactured have their own RFID tag. So that's the basic ingredient that is required for any kind of sensor proliferation. You need to uniquely identify the asset, and that is already in place. So maybe in 4 to 5 years we will have a lot of RFID tags on all the rolling stock assets of the new vehicles. And then the question comes about what kind of sensors you are going to proliferate. And in that, Camtech has one of the organizational universities has already prepared a very blueprint and a thing of what kind of sensors are probably being looked at. So again, RDSO, Camtech, the mechanical engineering side will be the right people to have a clear view of what's going to be there, but they're looking at multiple types of sensors, right? From acoustic sensors to vibration sensors to temperature sensors. So these are all will be there, but they will have to integrate it with the RFID and the way the transmission protocols are done. And on top of that entire data collection layer that we are planning, on top of it will rest the analytics layer. And that's what we and Chris lead. So right now we look at analytics mostly from transaction related data, but we are also open to looking at analytics from data coming from sensors. So primarily what I would say is that the data ecosystem needs to be designed based on what questions railway needs to answer. How do you detect maybe some failures of sub-assemblies? How do you prevent an online failure? What are the kind of data points that are required? And then we work it backwards to design the data ecosystem. And once you have enough features that are available in your sensors which capture the right data points, then the analytics will follow. So I think the questions that need to be answered is what are the questions that railways wants to be answered through these sensors. Sensors per se is not the end objective. The ability to analyze them and be able to, on a real-time basis, come up with intelligent decisions which will help in improved operations is what we are looking at. And we are not just looking at products of different sensors, cameras or something. These are products. We are looking for solutions which will help us be more efficient and more cost.
Yeah, right, Dr. Gopal Krishnan. That was very insightful. And definitely, there are a lot of options around the data ecosystem that you were defining just right now. That solutions around the data ecosystem. And as an industry, industry would be looking forward to see how those data ecosystem can be in a participative, partnered by the private sector, and gain experience from other sectors wherever technology in a similar way is happening. I would like to have your viewpoint on the participation from the private sector and how you are looking forward to those enablements to seek the private sector efficiency.
Yeah, it's a good question, and I think the important point is that obviously these are technologies which obviously definitely need to partner with the private sector because we don't manufacture sensors and stuff. But again, it will be a very collaborative exercise. That's what I foresee, in the sense that the industry and it could be multiple vendors in the same space to collaborate, come together with RDSO and with the IT system which this is part of, and design the communication protocols first so that we are very sure of what kind of communication protocols are going to be established. We don't want to get logged into, because when you're looking at a solution, you are going to get feedback from multiple sensors. As I said, acoustic sensors, vibration sensors, and thermal sensors, and things like that. And no one vendor might have expertise in all these sensors. One could be good in one and maybe another company is good in the other. But these needs to be coming in a common open communication protocol which railways is comfortable with, so that we can integrate all these kind of data points that are going to come up. And then again, coming for the solution as well. Again, we look at solutions because in the asset side, it's more going to be physics and engineering plus data compared to a traditional, say, demand side forecasting, which is completely based on data. Maybe even operations kind of thing where you're looking at more data-driven kind of decision making. Here, obviously, the engineering side and the physics side will have a very big role to play. How the engine works, what kind of temperatures are safe, and things like that. So it needs a very strong collaboration first of these three entities to come together, design the open standards or data communication standards and protocols. Our IT system should then be at the same time coming in sync, because if we have sensors in place but we don't have the storage in place or integration with our transaction processing system, because most of our current methods of data capture for our assets, rolling stock or track or signal, is based on transaction processing systems where somebody measures some particular parameters and then feeds into the system. But we have a large database, so we don't like to rewrite those software. how those
Right, sir.
how those things can get augmented, and then we take it forward to more data analytics driven and maybe solutions in the
Right, sir. Right, sir. I understand that's a basic framework and the ecosystem which has to be built around an IT framework, and then the house to communicate between the different data sets that is coming out and use analytics to make railways more safer, secure, and sustainable. That is a very valid point that you have made, sir. At this point, I would like to hear from industry representative Mr. Ashish Khare, who joins us from Europe, Amsterdam. Good afternoon, Mr. Khare, and it's our pleasure to have you as one of our panelists. And we would look forward to hear from you, an extension of what Dr. Gopal Krishnan was mentioning, how technology has helped us in bringing more sustainable ecosystem around in mobility. In railways, we are looking for it, and are also in other sectors. All efficiency has been brought in by IT-led technology. Mr. Ashish, please.
Hi, good afternoon to you all, and thanks, Nitin, for putting up a right proposition here. I would agree with Dr. Gopalakrishnan that it's a journey, and in that journey, one of the important aspects is how the communication protocols are used, how data ingestion is enabled, and wherever required, controls also are enabled using a right protocol combination. And that's where the edge-based propositions combined with cloud-based or say data center-based analytical engines will take a shape. Now, coming back to sustainability part, when we look at these aspects and see that how the overall flow of activities is happening. So these activities are not just giving you a data flow one side, they also help you to improve on processes, improve on controls. And ultimately, they contribute to net zero sustainability in multiple ways. Some are direct, which can be from energy optimization standpoint with the all direct carbon emission points and reducing the carbon footprint. But there is a hell lot of indirect aspects which are there. Because what we contribute to energy the burn or to the say carbon emission is not just what we consume in our offices or in a say locomotive in the form of fuel or the say maybe a fuel based energy. More than that, there are so many indirect things. So suppose if we are talking about a maintenance task where human involvement on site is X, and if that can be reduced to 80% of that X or 0.8X or 0.7X, that automatically contributes to sustainability improvement. Because all these human resources, all these maintenance activities indirectly consume energy in some way or the other. They add to carbon emission in some way or the other, whether it is in transportation or it is in their day-to-day activities. Now, IoT as a technology help in getting some of these systems and processes automated and bring down the number of visits which are required to fix some of these problems. Because identification of problem can be remote. We can move right from proactive to preventive to predictive. And that service journey help in optimizing overall service life cycle and also improve on the predictability part, the SLA of any system, whether it is from rolling stock standpoint or from building system standpoint, and reducing the cost of maintenance as well. So it is something which adds to multiple factors, right from the SLA, the experience part, the way things happens from a maintenance standpoint, the way things happens from a human involvement on ground perspective, and then finally improving on sustainability. Similar things have been done in aero industry. So airports and airlines are using some of these initiatives already. Some of the railways globally have started working on that and got some headway. So there is definitely a journey on, and many of those learnings can be applied to the larger world. Because Indian Railways, of course, is much bigger than many of other railways globally. And footprint, the kind of journey, the kind of network, and the load which we carry. Complexity is not of same
Right,
level
right.
as we have vis-a-vis others.
Right, Mr. Khare. So there is a complexity, and also there is a lot of value for money that has to be generated and from the customization that is needed for the Indian Railways. And I would come back to you on on how efficiency and can be driven by these initiatives later on in the session. And meanwhile, moving forward on the mobility solutions part and how technology is leading forward in the mobility solution space, we would like to have insights from Mr. Mangal Dev, who heads the rail system India and South Asia from Hitachi. Mr. Mangal Dev, welcome to the panel discussion, and I look forward to your insights on the technology and how mobility driven solutions helps in the safety and sustainability of the ecosystem around the railways per se. Yes, Mr. Mangal, please.
You are on mute.
Yeah.
Sorry. So first of all, thank you, Nitin, for inviting me and Hitachi to participate on this panel discussion. And also thank you, Fiki, for organizing this. This is very useful conference, when India is looking at Atmanirbhar Bharat, and also, in the current situation, where there is, we just, left COVID behind and, moving towards another situation. But mobility will always remain very, very important topic, whether globally or in India. So Hitachi being a global company, we understand, very well that with the new drivers that we see globally, one of them, is the sustainability. So sustainability related to environment, a carbon footprint is very, very important piece, and mobility is one of the strong contributor to it. And then is the interconnectivity or multimodal mobility is very, very important, for our commuters. And finally, is the affordability. The mobility should be affordable and safe and easy to commute. So if we look at these three drivers, a railway is, moving very, very fast, and specifically Indian Railway is moving very, very fast to align with the environment imperatives and sustainability by, moving to 100% electrification. And now they're talking about a generation 2 of Vande Bharat trains, and the new Kavach signaling system, and on top of that, the entire information and communication system. So I believe that when all these things will be in place, Indian Railways or the mobility in India, and not only just the Indian Railways, but also in our cities and in our towns, where we have these metros, and then we will also see very soon the light metro and metro neos. This will create a network of multimodal interconnectivity. That will be very, very important, both physical connectivity as well as the electrical and electronic communication connectivity, and then finally the information sharing and communication between different subsystems, so that we can create a infrastructure which is seamless and multimodal for our commuters. And on top of that, if we are able to from point A to point B create one ticketing system, and facilitating through a very easy payment system, with digital banking and other type of banking, and then finally the distribution of the revenue to the different stakeholders. I think that is what is the image of finally what we all want to see, and we call it mobility as a service. So, in this world, when there is a lot of focus on building infrastructure and also sweating out the infrastructure that we already have, it is very important to move into the digital side and understand how these different system and subsystem can be interface connected and operated for the three drivers that I talked about. Now, in terms of sustainability, we are not just saying that mobility is only railway, but it is also about the other modes of transport, be it the electric vehicles or electric rickshaw or electric scooters, and also, connecting this because any mobility is end to end, starting from your home to ending to the office, or starting from the office ending to home. So we have to cover the entire bandwidth. So, so this is very important, and particularly the railways, when planning about infrastructure, the infrastructure today, Indian Railways per se, you have to create much more infrastructure because it is already congested. They have identified some high density network and high density corridors, and it need to be decongested. But moving to the next generation of infrastructure, the locomotives or the train should be completely autonomous. It means they should have very less need of fixed infrastructure on the ground, which is very much possible because nowadays, the technology has, improved so much that there could be intelligent locomotives, intelligent trains, which can talk to each other, which can, you know, uh, broadcast their location vis-a-vis the other trains or locomotives and to the control center. Therefore, we also see what we have seen on Delhi Metro and others, the driverless operation and unattended train operation. This is an example of autonomous.
Sir, please unmute.
Unmute.
Sorry, I don't know how I got muted. So the third point I talked about is the affordability, and which is, not only what I talked about the multimodal, which will reduce a lot of inefficiencies, but also the energy of the entire system. And the energy is one of the major contributor. That is why, for green environment, railway is moving towards green energy, renewable energy, which itself is, very, very clean, and also trying to find out their own sources of energy as well as depending on sources of energy which are cost effective. But not just the cost of energy per se, but also the consumption of energy has to be optimized and reduced to a great extent. And therefore, there should be a modal shift from all type of transport. Of course, we are not going to say that these transport modes will vanish, but there should be a greater modal shift from other subsidiary transport system to the railway system, which is very important because railway is the carrier of mass transit, mass people, and therefore the footprint of whether you take in terms of energy consumption or in terms of carbon footprint is the smallest in terms of railway. So therefore, this is very, very important. And to really drive all these things, I think we all these companies, as we say, Atmanirbhar. So Atmanirbhar is not going to happen just by imagining and only manufacturing, but also doing a great amount of innovation at throughout the value chain. And the entire value chain should be in control in India so that this can be delivered, imagined, and structured and delivered in time, and there is a complete control in terms of cost and efficiencies as well as the overall cost and efficiency. So this is the narrative, this is the theme, this is the kind of imagination that the global railway companies are developing to overcome the challenge that we have. So safety is inbuilt into it. I mean, we are saying that when we have these autonomous trains, when we have these kind of train management system and the signaling system and the communication system. Definitely, the base is that the safety of the passengers is absolutely important. So not only the
Right.
safety, but also, as I mentioned about energy, sustainability, all these drivers have to looked at in a holistically. So,
Yes, very
good
rightly said.
planning and good execution should look at all these points. Sorry, I mean,
Yeah.
I think I went quite far, but
No, no, no.
that's it.
No, no, very
That's
rightly said. And rightly, talked about an important part of the whole discussion, that our commitment is there in terms of, if we say the net zero concept by 2070, the Prime Minister of India has committed, and Railways itself is committed to 2030 net zero. So those commitments are there. And when we talk about the planning part of it, we already have a Gati Shakti master plan, which is, talks about the mobility part of it, how intra-mobility can be developed in a holistic manner, and the logistics cost also gets decreased, and the same time reliability of the operations comes in. The most important part, sir, that you talked about was the implementation part of it. And here, nothing great than we are privileged to have Mr. Rakesh Gaur, and he has the first-hand account of how implementation, he has done in the past in the, related to the electrification, which has been a success story. And we would definitely like to hear from him his perspective on how to, implement these, aspects, and also from his global experience that he brings in. Mr. Gaur, thanks for joining very early morning in Brazil. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Nitinji, and my special thanks to FICCI for organizing this, and still organizing in such a way that the timeline for this is being managed. People from Holland and Brazil both are able to join, so it is really remarkable. We have seen I personally involved in last 6-7 years in the electrification activities of the railway. Once we are talking that our infrastructure has to be ready for future. That meaning is that it should be affordable, and the services should be with the reliability and safety. I think a lot of activities are being discussed. It is happening. And first, I will take the electrification part. Electrification, it is around out of 68,000 route kilometer, 45,000 was done last year, up to last year, and 5,000, 6,000 is being done in this year. And the remaining 18,000 is a very, very challenging task. The challenging task in terms of that this is earlier we have done is low hanging fruits. Now it is either north or is northeast, or it is some hilly areas where a lot of tunnels are being used. So this, although we have a target up to December 23, but the pace, the attention, the focus which is being given is remarkable, and it will go on that line. Speed upgradation is also being discussed. This is also being done, but speed upgradation have a lot of other challenge. You have to have the radio network, which is covering all the patches in proper way, ensuring that ghat sections are properly covered, and you can say completely infrastructure which is being developed in terms of boundary walls to be done, LC gates are to be upgraded. So a lot of things are happening. And signaling system, as we are discussing Kavach, although the pace of implementation of Kavach is being discussed from 2003 onward, 2002 to 2006 in different forms. And speed will come only when we have a proper signaling system in place. So implementation of electrification has been given a focus, but signaling is still slightly much lesser pace than what it should have been. We are seeing that all these areas, lot of challenges are nowadays coming. One is that now capex and opex is virtually on 50% level. And we are also observing that the areas of financial closing, payment systems are still MB and all the old type of systems. So the ERP systems and upgradation is not taking place. The major challenge which contractors are facing, EPC contractors, are the commodity prices and oil and diesel prices, which has recently been coming to a phase. Now this is not getting addressed properly in the contract and contract administration. So this will ultimately slow down the speed of execution. It may happen that target which we are setting for completing the project may require rebidding and cancellation of the contract and lot of complications which may arise. So as a first-hand experience, last 6 to 7 years, we have traveled a lot. We have done a journey towards multimodal transport. I think recently the DVC one was commissioned by Tata's and DVC. It is happening that DFCC is coming to a shape, and then we are seeing that a lot of sections are now getting commissioned. But we have to put all the learnings in place to implement all the future projects and making the infrastructure ready for 2030. Electrification will also bring certain complications. Complication in terms is the 68,000 kilometer route will have approximately 1,000 traction substations and around 14,000, 10,000 tons of SPSSPs that has to be integrated. My other two friends have already indicated that asset management with on-time information, preventive maintenance, planning in a much better way, organizing the complete transparency on the system is require a very, very serious attention. So these were the points from my side that as a EPC contractor, the challenges are multifold, and we have to also see that financial availability, because you will see that sometimes PSU start getting crisis of funds because the allocation has not been done, financial closure has not come to certain projects. So that is a major challenge. On the protocol side, I will just share an example that in 2000, 2001, in transmission line substations, there used to be protocol problem. And then all the major players like ABB, Siemens, as some GE has set together, and they have decided a protocol of 61850. It's implemented. So data transfer, data availability, everything was done in a much proper way. And now the devices are interchangeable. Devices are able to communicate with each other much more effectively. So I personally feel railway should also try to do it much faster than what is being discussed. So thanks from my side. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Rakesh. That was very insightful, and especially thoughts around the implementation, the challenges that we are facing. I mean, obviously, it's a very heartening to see that we have implementation capability in the electrification increased 5 times from the last 5-6 years. Although challenges remain in terms of contract management, in terms of contract administration, and in terms of the commodity pricing. So these are some areas that we have to look into while implementing the technology part of it. One another aspect I would like to get inputs, and it would be very helpful from Dr. Mangal Dev sir, that bringing in the signaling part of it. That's the focus right now, and to have a more secure, safe, and a more throughput of the rail system. The signaling aspect would be of a great focus, and rightly we have now a Kavach system installed. So the coming on the implementation and the technology inputs for the Kavach, it would be very helpful from you, sir, to guide us how this implementation and the consistency in the policy for the implementation and the technology should be looked at, and it would be a great driver for a future-looking railways in India. Mr. Mangal Dev, please.
Thank you again, Nitin. So let me just rephrase. I think what signaling and not only just the cover, but the entire gamut of signaling systems, which contributes towards safety, capacity, and the speed. So it's not just the coverage, but also the train management system and central train control, that Hitachi has implemented from Ghaziabad to Kanpur, where it used to be a high density network, and now having implemented this, there is a huge amount of capacity augmentation on the same. And for the record's sake, we are also implementing the same solution on DFC, on the Western DFC. So, which means it's not just the per se the signaling, which Indian Railways currently use is the automatic signaling, which helps them to increase capacity as well as speed. But if they really want to convert this high density and high capacity into a high capacity, they have to look at holistic nature of signaling system. Kavach is more synonymous to what is called ATP, automatic train protection. When a driver, we cannot depend on the driver completely. Therefore, the entire signaling system has to be the prime system, to manage the safety of trains on the network. So it's the entire signaling system. Now, Indian Railways has, a lot of ambition, after specifically this pandemic, when they did not run the passenger trains, they found that, when they increase the speed of freight trains, they can haul a lot of freight, across the country. And that has given them, good insight into that uh, railway revenue generation is mainly coming from freight, and passenger is more kind of a subsidized, but they have to of course manage both in a balanced manner. And therefore Kavach per se is only going to contribute to ATP. They have to increase the speed has to, both for passenger and freight, has to go beyond what is today. And it is not just, the signaling, but also the new set of locomotives, the new set of rolling stock, the Vande Bharat or other trains, and also the wagons which should be run at higher speed. So I think it's important that if railway wants to become profitable, they have to enhance capacity, they have to sweat the assets, they have to adequately put capex for green railway, and definitely Kavach is very, very important pillar. Now, Kavach, as I said, is more synonymous with ATP, and of course, the idea is that it should be, the entire value chain should be in India. So I think there are large number of companies, which are both Indian and global, who have this kind of competency, and I'm sure they will rise to the occasion to fulfill this Indian Railways need.
Thank you, Dr. Dev Mangal sir. Thank you, thanks a lot. Coming from your inputs, it is very interesting to know that obviously there are a lot of IT systems in play now in railways, and this would be the right occasion to bring in Dr. Gopalakrishnan here. See, he is actually looking after various IT applications along with RDS. So we have, let it be track management system, let it be other initiatives for preventive and predictive maintenance. Sir, your views would be, solicited here on how, it is important to have, a layer of, a framework wherein all these ecosystem that we are speaking about, be it the train protection system, be it, reliability tracking systems, be it the passenger convenience, passenger comfort, which is like Wi-Fi, providing Wi-Fi in a moving train, how this whole ecosystem around, the data that we are capturing from all different ecosystems can be, led in a better, analyzed in a better way to have some meaningful solutions. And what is, your thoughts on this, sir?
Yeah, so because I had the data science unit in this strong team of people, and we have very extensive collaborations with the premium institutions in the country, because a lot of the problems in railways, as you see, some of them are solved in the sense like you might have ready-made products available, but a lot of them are still unsolved. United States or any other country in the world is not going to be the solution, finding the solution for Indian railway problems. There are a lot of technical problems that India faces because of the nature of mixed traffic. Most of the railways, if you look at abroad, are either pure freight or pure passenger, and this heterogeneity of traffic is what causes the capacity mix. There are a lot of issues that come up as a result of that. So we have a very clear focus when we look at data science. Wherever we have, say, things like high business value, high data maturity, those are the places where analytics can play a role. And if we find data gaps, like for example, health analytics of coaches and wagons, where we find that we are still not in a position where we can do health analytics, then we have to design the ecosystem for that. And that's where IoT and sensors come into play. So we have a very strategic roadmap already in place. So we have a very strong analytics vision document which we have, comprising of all departments of Indian Railways, and we are moving in close alignment with that. It's not like it's a sudden spurt of the moment that we do analytics here and then analytics there. We are looking at a complete ecosystem, or is a framework. When you design a Mercedes Benz, I can't only design, look at the engine, or the steering wheel, or the wheel. We will look at the entire, all the units of a car. So we have a complete framework based on which we put in our resources, wherein it could be both sanctioning of projects where private participation help some kind of analytics. No single vendor can have a solution for all the problems in this. Everybody has his own expertise, and we will plug and play into different areas, and we move in a very holistic manner. And that's what our unit actually does, and it's closely aligned with what the ministry does.
Yeah, so it would also be helpful to know if you can let us know that what are some initiatives regarding modernization wherein you encourage the private sector and they develop some prototypes, and that would be useful, like some of these prototypes in the technology initiatives. So if you can provide certain idea on those initiatives, please.
Yeah, for example, I'll come from the operation side. So in the operation side, we have a lot of solutions for optimizing, say, locomotive links, like how the locomotives needs to be rotated. Like come an aircraft in, say, from Delhi, Bangalore to Delhi. The same aircraft is not going to fly back to Bangalore. It might go to Lucknow, and from Lucknow to Calcutta, and things like that. You keep maximize your fleet utilization. So things like that, we are already engaging with private participation for say, designing better locomotive links, which helps us rotate the passenger locomotive lanes to the least number of locomotives even more. We already designed the solutions for crew links, where we have engaged with one of the big reputed consultants of one of the big four, and we have been able to come up with solutions which helps optimize that. And similarly, we are also RDS is already coming up in the signaling side. They already are looking at data analytics in a big way, wherein they look at they are foreseeing a lot of private participation in the signaling side. That's something which I am privy to, but other things are evolving as and when the data system matures. The analytics ecosystem will also mature. So I think the focus should be on first coming up with a framework with these are the questions we need to answer, build the data ecosystem, and then go for that.
Right, sir, right. So as we understand, data analytics, which comes from the sensors that we, place on the assets, and that gives a, idea about the way it is performing below par, above par, or it needs maintenance. Here, I think Ashish Khare, he would be of great help because his inputs on the efficiency side, asset management, how we recycle asset, or how we optimize the asset management, and how efficiency can bring. So if we can have certain examples from Ashish, how he can help us, and how it has helped the industry in optimizing, and if we can have a quantum, because everybody in India will look at why to invest in certain things if doesn't have a immediate payback. So if Ashish can share us insights on the economic parts of also the asset optimization.
And so asset management is a bigger topic, and it doesn't end at collecting data and analyzing data. It is also the how it is applied to the process and automation. And how do we look at the overall things in a holistic manner? Now, if we look at the asset management, one aspect which is from preventive to proactive to preventive to predictive happens, that anyway ensures that we identify failures much before they actually hit, which clearly means that in most of the cases, while it may not be 100% predictive, but even if we are able to achieve 70 to 80% predictive, and that's something which has happened across various industries in past, we are taking care of the spares planning activities in that whole process. We are taking care of the human intervention aspect in the whole process. The benefits which straight away hits the organization, or say comes to the organization, are one, in optimization of the spare stocks, inventories, in transit spares, which they plan. In one of the aero industry where we worked closely, and we delivered the solution for their asset management and optimization, we could reduce spare stocking by 30%. And typical spare investments are in these kinds of industries, whether it is airline or it is railways, are in range of 5 to 7%, and sometimes even higher depending on how the locations are, how the distribution has to be, and all. A 30% saving in that straight away gives a benefit of 1 to 1.5% of the overall inventory cost, or overall say cost of capital from various spare the pool perspective, which is a big saving. And That combined with the human optimization and optimization in terms of the service contracts, which are done with various players, because everything is not managed in-house. There are certain things which organizations do in-house. There are certain things they outsource to various parties. So since there is a proactive and preventive data available, there's a predictive data available, these service contracts also can be renegotiated and optimized, because ultimately it's reducing effort of that contract organization and further adds to savings. And the aero industry, which I am giving an example, their saving in contract optimizations was also close to 18%. As a result, the ROI was less than 3 years. For whatever investments which had gone in terms of putting some extra sensors, putting those analytics engines, and that also was close to 3 years, mainly because the life cycle, or say the cycle time to get the maturity of these processes is also there. So starting from day one, investments were done, and then data collection, analytics, putting up a machine learning, putting up the predictive models in a right shape, fine tuning them. By the time the results started coming, so actually from that time it was less than 2 years.
Yeah. So really, it is very remarkable achievement in such a short time period. You are getting back your investment. One another add-on to this would be, being a travel experience, transport around brings customer, a traveler. So how does these initiatives also builds around the customer experience? A passenger walking into a railway station or walking into a terminal or exiting, how these solutions around technology helps us. So Mr. Khari, if you can bring in those insights also, it would be helpful for us.
So let me take a simple example of public conveniences, because people experience this plays a significant role. The hygiene associated, the state of public convenience or facilities at stations or in the rolling stock as well. If this is done the standard way, it is time schedule based, which means that irrespective of what is the load or what is the footfall, it is maintained at given time interval. Now, manually, if people try to adjust based on the train schedule and other aspects or the timing, it may get fine-tuned to an extent, but not too full. If we put it on a IoT-based sensing, and then using that data for scheduling the facilities maintenance, having footfall-based cleaning plan, having footfall-based spatial acts. So if there is a higher footfall at specific time, we plan manpower accordingly, we plan whole of the activity accordingly, ensuring that water is in place, soap is in place. Now, this initially used to come at a high cost. Now, cost of these devices and sensors also have come down significantly, mainly because the sensor cost was anyway lower. The cost of connectivity and wiring was much higher. With LoRa and NB-IoT being available, the ease of installation is high, and the ease of say the connectivity is high, and then ultimately reduces the cost of connectivity and overall installation of these equipment. So we can now have affordable solutions based on IoT sensors to ensure that all of this public convenience the process is automated, and people get that basic what is called hygiene, but ultimately it converts to the experience in the complete cycle.
Yeah,
And same thing applies to the other aspects also. So this is just one example because it can be understood easily. And this has happened in airports. This has happened in some of the stations in global railways. It has happened in cities. So like Alceta, which is electronic city area in Bangalore, all public conveniences are remotely monitored and managed with automated process.
Yeah, right. So it not only brings efficiency, it also leads to higher customer experiences.
Exactly.
Right, right. Very good. Technology is such an enabler, and it's wonderful to hear from you who has implemented. Again, coming back to the railways, that investments that we are planning in railways, the capex for technology and all, and there are a lot of challenges in the investment that is being looked at, as rightly pointed out by Dr. Rakesh Kaur also, because contracting through a EPC mode or contracting in various modes has some challenges. So I would like to hear from Mr. Rakesh Gaur his insights from the global experiences, like the challenges he talked about, like commodities price increase. So if we can have certain alternatives to these commodities, which wherein a solution is available, which is more sustainable, environment friendly, that will help the implementation part of it. It would be great if we can share on such global experiences.
Thanks a lot again, Nitinji. Actually, first of all, the contract administration with the FIDIC-based conditions try to make the contract very balanced one, and this kind of variations which are not in control of contractor or the employer can be handled in much better way if we have a proper administration and price variations. Even India, some of the PSUs are using EMA as a base, and when they are using EMA as a base, their some cost coverage is realistic instead of WPI and RBI indexes. The another thing which you can say Latin American countries or Central Asia countries do is that they have concrete poles instead of steel poles to be used. And the advantage is that life cycle, because of the rusting, etc., and maintenance is much more easier. It can handle much more other utilities also on the same pole, and the installations are much more simpler than the kind of steel structure we have. Uh, if we have remote areas, these stocks of, you can say, the way we handle the PWI stocking in railways, you will find whenever you have near the track, you find sleepers, rails are lying here and there. They stock it in a very proper way, and then it is not necessary the contractor providing that items at a particular location. Contractor can feed this item at a central store, and then you can lift the material from other places. So the continuity of the business, continuity of the construction goes on, the productivity comes out much faster. So the 3 point which I want to say is contract administration try to balance it out in such a way that any opportunity or any force measure which is not seen can be handled out better way. Variations can be handled in a much better way because of the technology enabled SAP system or ERP systems where data can be fed and controlled and checked from any places at any particular time, which is being done by the other agencies worldwide. Communication systems, letter drafting, contract management can be further improved because we spend a lot of time arguing with very, very silly points in the contract, and that frustration of the contract comes much faster. So these are the areas which will surely bring the efficiency, and the investment can be handled in more productive way. The projects which run for 4 years, 5 years can be shortened for a shortened period. When the contractor is also assured of a proper administration of the contract, he will also try to put in some money, he will try to put in some risk and try to implement the project without affecting the schedule. Thank
Right,
you.
sir.
Thank you.
Right, sir. Right, sir. And that was very helpful. So we had a very engaging discussions around the technology initiatives that would be helpful for the railways as we look forward to the Amrit Mahotsav of the independence, 75 years of India. And we heard about the various technology enablers which are present, the commitment from the government. We heard about the commitment from the government itself, and also the implementation part of it, the challenges and the way forward. So that was a very fine inputs from everyone. Thanks everyone for your inputs. And I would now request if Komal can say some words on this, and we can move forward on this session.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much,
everyone.
Nitin.
Thank you.
Greatly, you've encapsulated the entire discussion in a very short format, but to the point. We've banged on all the important aspect. Technology looks to play a very, very important role when we talk about modernizing the entire travel experience through railways. And how do we make it more safe, more convenient, more comfortable? Of course, coverage is something that we all look forward to. There's been also a very major focus on sustainability. Electrification, as we all know, is has come a long way.
We also talked about the concerns, as Mr. Gaur pointed out, related to the EPC contracts. So we had Mr. RN Singh in the inaugural session today, who's working on a policy by the Railway Board, which should be out any moment. And there has been a major focus on making things easier for the private sector, so that we have more and more participation, and the apprehension and the concerns can be made limited. So with this, we come to an end of this session. We have a short break in between, but not a short, I would say a longer break, but we have a very interesting session lined up at 6 o'clock between Indian and railway companies, where we have the top Canadian companies coming up and sharing their experiences and how they would want to contribute to the Indian railway sector. So for all of you who can join, please make it convenient to attend. Thank you so much to all the panelists and to our moderator. Wish you a great day ahead. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Komal. Thank you, everybody.
Everyone.